Hi, I'm Dempsey Palat, and this week I'm reviewing Spider-Man Far From Home was directed by Jon Watts and stars Tom Holland as Peter Parker once again, aka everyone's favorite neighborhood Spider-Man. Now, the film also stars Zendaya, Jacob Batalon, and a couple of other familiar faces to the MCU, such as Samuel L. Jackson and Kobe Smulders. And the film follows Peter Parker as he tries to lead a normal life away from being a superhero by going on a summer school trip with a bunch of his classmates. However, this quickly backfires when these new creatures called elementals arrive and threaten to destroy the entire world. Recruited by Nick Fury, he's forced to work alongside a new, mysterious superhero, fittingly called Mysterio and played by Jake Gyllenhaal, to try and save the day. And yes, that was a lot. This whole film is a lot, but in a good way. And that is why for this review I chose to go the way of spoilers. I don't do this for all the films, I usually do it for the bigger ones, but this one especially I found it to be necessary. There's just so much that happens and I don't think I can do the film justice, especially in talking about it, without going into detail. So, for those of you guys who are looking forward to a non-spoiler review, I apologize, but please just know that this video is just going to be all spoilers. If you haven't seen the movie yet, just pause this video or close your laptop or turn off your phone or whatever. Come back to this video later and listen to my thoughts. You have been warned, okay, guys? So, without further ado, let's dive in. Spider-Man Far From Home was fantastic. Besides being a great sequel to Homecoming and just a great Spider-Man film all around, I thought it was a very satisfying epilogue to the whole Infinity Saga. From its opening, and I'm not talking about the actual opening of the film, I'm talking about the opening in the high school with the fake news segment, I think it does a really good job at tying up all the loose ends that Endgame didn't get a chance to address, such as the blips. I love the whole idea of the blips, and I like how realistic they made them, showing how people disappeared and reappeared, showing people age, or showing people go homeless. That careful attention to detail made up for that terrible snafu in the beginning of Homecoming. And for those of you guys who don't know what I'm talking about, well, of all the consequences of Endgame that this film deals with, though, the death of Tony Stark is arguably the most important, and that should come as no surprise considering just how much of a father figure he was to Peter Parker. But his absence in Peter's life really takes its toll on him. It forces him to second-guess everything, and it ultimately even sets the stage for the film's true antagonist to appear, and we'll get to that in a second. But honestly, he does eventually come into his own, I will say that. He realizes that he can't sit around and wait for the next leader of the Avengers to appear. He takes on that role himself in a seemingly smaller capacity, but he takes it on reluctantly, just as, you know, Tony Stark did in the very beginning. And honestly, that's one of the things that I also really loved about this film, that it dealt with his growth not only as a character, but as a kid, and that he's still making mistakes, but he's also learning from them. Speaking of mistakes, Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio? Totally not a mistake. In fact, far from it. Now, I knew when I first saw the trailer that it would be too good to be true that he was a good guy, especially because in the comics he prides himself on being a trickster. But then again, they threw in that whole multiverse twist in a couple of the other trailers, and that really made everybody kind of do a 360, like, oh, yo, Jake Gyllenhaal could really be a good guy. But then it turned out to be an actual lie and a bigger twist later on in the film, as we all know. But regardless, I really like the direction that they took his character. And I like the fact that they kind of upgraded him from the special effects artist who's able to do all the illusions to like a modern day genius that can manipulate drones and holograms. That was a refreshing take on the character, in my opinion. And honestly, he's one of the best villains that I've seen in the MCU in a very long time. Not as layered as some of the more prominent ones such as Loki or Thanos, but still, I would love to see more of him, and unfortunately, as we all know as well, we may not be seeing more of him because he's dead, at least until he isn't anymore. Because, well, you know, it could just be an illusion again. Before I forget, and while we're on the topic of Mysterio, I do think it's worth noting that the special effects in this movie are astounding. Okay, the amount of attention to detail that is placed on all these CGI action sequences, and especially the illusion sequences that Peter experiences throughout the film, is just stunning. So realistic, so great, and it adds this extra layer of authenticity to the whole movie going experience. And between the de-aging that went on in Captain Marvel this year and the entirety of Endgame and now Spider-Man Far From Home, I can honestly say that Marvel is definitely at its special effects peak. Not to say that, none of their films before were as good in terms of special effects or CGI quality, but now it's just the best that it's ever been. And I'm excited to see how much more they improve going forward. There is just so much to love about this film. For one, it is hilarious. Jacob Batalon steals the show once again as Ned. Pretty much every time he's on screen, you have a smile on your face. And this time around, we're also joined by J.B. Smoove. He is a part of the cast, and he plays one of Peter's chaperones on the trip. And he is a trip. Usually, I don't find him too funny, but in this film, I thought that he had a lot of really great one-liners, too. Also, the chemistry between Tom Holland and Zendaya as Peter Parker and MJ is just undeniable. The two of them are so cute when they are together. Their awkwardness is just so to watch. It's just so perfect. And I hope at one point, they do get together if they haven't already been together in real life. It's just in general, this is my favorite Spider-Man film to date. I'm just gonna say it outright. I'm not gonna front. Okay, from beginning to end, this film is action-packed, but that's not even why I like it, okay? I like it because it does so much for Spider-Man as a character, okay? So it does so many things that we haven't really seen in a Spider-Man movie, and, for only being around for a couple of years, and I think this is his 5th appearance, it still shows that this is just the beginning of Spider-Man's story. This film was so close to perfect that it actually upsets me a little. Yeah, obviously, as you can probably guess, there were a couple of things that I didn't like. The most major thing being that Nick Fury twist that's revealed in the post-credit scene. It just didn't work for me. And it actually begs the question as to whether or not it was really him that disappeared in Endgame or Talos. You see, it's one of those things that I suppose that writers do to try and pull the rug from under your feet and make you go like, oh my god, that's so clever, but it actually just opens the door for more chaotic thinking. And the biggest reason why I don't buy it is because of the climax where Happy Hogan calls Nick Fury and he gives him that verbal code to let him know that something's up, and Nick Fury obviously believes it and understands it, but no, how could he understand it if it wasn't really Nick Fury? You get what I'm saying? And yes, you can make the argument that, maybe Nick Fury told Talos. No, I'm not. I can't suspend my disbelief that much. It's one of those things where, I like the idea of it. I like the idea that maybe Nick Fury's been away and that he's had his eye on, the bigger picture for a while. But I just didn't like the execution. It just didn't work for me. It created a lot more frustration and confusion than satisfaction. And another thing that I didn't really like about this film was that whole Happy Hogan Aunt May thing. What was that? It felt very forced. And another thing, I like the idea that Aunt May is getting back out there, but once again, I just didn't like the execution. The best post-credit scene to me was the first one, which I guess is technically called the mid-credits. And it's because it actually does a lot for the MCU without most people actually realizing. Let me explain why. So before going into this film, I actually had this crazy theory that I told some of my friends about, one way in which I imagined the film going. So I initially still had my guard up regarding Mysterio. I thought that he would still be an imposter, even after watching the trailers where he said he was from a different universe. But my whole theory was basically that he would say that he was from a different universe and still lie about it, but the fact would remain that there are still universes out there, that there is a multiverse, even though he lied about it. And I would have thought that it would be ingenious for the post-credits to include some sort of introduction or some gateway into the possibility that Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man are still out there and that they were possibly canon in the MCU. I thought that would have been so cool. And while that wasn't exactly what happened, even though I thought it would have been really awesome, just especially to see it like Tobey Maguire tap dancing or something at the end. Anyway, we instead get J. Jonah Jameson, J.K. Simmons's J. Jonah Jameson, and yeah, he's a little bit more modern. He runs a website now, but it's the same actor, and I think that in and of itself kind of opens up the same kind of possibilities that my theory would have opened up. That maybe, you know, even though we do have a different kind of Spider-Man, that some things are still kind of constant, are and aligned to the way things were before, if that makes sense. So yeah, who knows? Maybe that is a direction that the MCU is exploring. But all I know is that we got J.K. Simmons in the MCU now, and I'm absolutely content with it. Even if we don't get to see any of the other Spider-Men become canon, I'm still content with having that perfectly cast J.K. Simmons back. As I mentioned before, Spider-Man Far From Home isn't perfect. However, it is the best live-action Spider-Man film that I've seen in a very long time, and that's saying a lot considering just how much I liked Homecoming. It's an ambitious, albeit grounded adventure that pays off in a multitude of ways, all while teasing an uncertain yet exciting future for the MCU. And for that, I'm going to give this film 4.5 stars.
Awesome!
Guys, thanks so much for watching. As always, if you like this video, hit that like button, and if you're not subscribed, I would ask you please subscribe. I post new videos weekly, and I'm very eager to be sharing some new stuff with you over the next couple of days, so make sure you stay tuned. That's all I'll say on that. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say on that. Now, if you happen to see this movie, if you loved it, if you hated it, talk to me in the comment section below. I'd love to hear what any and all of you guys thought, and I'd love to interact with you. Also, if you have any theories about Marvel's Phase 4, I'd love to hear them. Really. Literally, they can do anything they want. They literally can. They're a billion-dollar company at this point. But what do you think they are going to do? Given all the characters and plot lines that we've seen so far, talk to me. I really would love to know your thoughts as well. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me. Thank you guys again so much for taking the time out of your day to view this video. It really does mean the world to me. And I cannot wait to keep on doing them. And you'll be seeing a lot more from here on out. So yeah, I should probably get back to work. Until next time, I'm Dempsey Pallot. Take care.